Welcome into Flag for Discussion, episode 76 for Monday, April 20th. My name is Fernando Mendoza here, as always, with Jace Hatfield. Happy 1 year to Flag for Discussion. Happy birthday to you, Jace. It was also my birthday as well yesterday.
Yeah, back at you.
Yeah, thank you. Kind of fun that we planned it out in a way where we share a birthday with the podcast, and we didn't plan our own births together, but at least we planned the birth of the podcast. And this is already getting up to a weird
for lining it up for
us. Shout out
us.
the moms and dads.
Yeah.
We're
not celebrating 420, I promise. We're just hungover, so we're off to a weird start from the podcast or from the birthday.
This is one hell of a start here, Jace. All right, we got some fun stuff to talk about. James Franklin. I mean, did you see that video, the parachuter getting stuck on Virginia Tech's scoreboard? I hated to say this, but that's a beautiful symbol of what the James Franklin era at Penn State ended up being. And this is like the James Franklin era starting at Virginia Tech the right way. Luckily, the parachuter in question, basically, if anyone didn't see the video at this point, there was a parachuter who, as every professional or college team does, during the national anthem, parachutes in from the sky holding an American flag, except this one unfortunately crashed into the Virginia Tech scoreboard, and he was stuck up there for 20 minutes until rescuers came and got him down. Luckily, I think he was safe and he was okay, but you can't help but laugh at something like that happening to a James Franklin-led team.
Oh, dude. No, knowing that he's okay, it is the funniest video in the world. Just watching him dangle and you can hear this. Oh, this is terrible. You can hear the screams of the crowd and the fans. It's this. I think it's student section ish where underneath him, and they're all hands up, they're gonna catch him if he's not 40 feet in the air. Dude, you're not catching anything. Just so good. I've already seen a bunch of memes of Enter Sandman that have been great. Yeah, Twitter is going to be a lot of fun to scroll today, I think. Yeah, he's okay though, so it makes it better that he's safe. And yeah, it is a good allegory for James Franklin. I think it's the epitome of James Franklin. It's really cool, and then last second, right, it's about to be awesome. No, what's happening? Yeah, well, hopefully it doesn't go this way for him at Virginia Tech, but it was a hilarious way to start his career there.
Well, we have a lot to unpack about James Franklin outside of the parachuter today, but in addition to that, there might be a QB battle brewing in Ann Arbor. Kind of shocking, but it seems as though Michigan fans are almost done with the Bryce Underwood era, which, I think there's some debate there, but we'll get into that. The NCAA decided to finally bring the hammer down on Iowa, of all teams, for no reason. I don't understand that. We'll break that down. And then this Thursday, the first round of the NFL draft, obviously Thursday through the weekend, is the full NFL draft, will be taking place. We've done our mock draft already. We can open the floor if you have any revisions you want to make, but we'll preview some of the props heading into this draft. We'll give you our final thoughts before the draft starts. So make sure you are tuned in today on our Twitter at F4Discussion, TikTok at Flag4Discussion. We're on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, wherever you get your podcasts at Flag for Discussion spelled out. We're on YouTube. Make sure you subscribe to us there at Flag for Discussion. Happy 1 year to us, Jace.
Woohoo. Happy 27 years to us personally. 1 year to this podcast. Yeah. It's exciting times.
Very exciting. All right. I wanted to start, Jace, by reacting to this CBS Sports article that's titled "Why James Franklin Let Penn State Off the Hook by Joining Virginia Tech." Look, a lot of it has merit to it, but basically the argument was Franklin had a $49 million buyout after being fired. Penn State only owed him $9 million. Virginia Tech hired him. So the thought process there is, as we talked about during the season, if James Franklin wanted to stick it to Penn State, he would have taken a very low pay from Virginia Tech. So Penn State would have to pay the difference over the years instead of just the $9 million that they owe him now. And Franklin addressed it. He said, you go through that deal and you're thinking, I don't want to let them off the hook financially. That's something you're struggling with. But it wasn't about me penalizing Penn State at that point. It was about what do I need to do for my family and for myself to be happy and move on. this place, as in Virginia Tech, wanted us. You know what that feels like. They wanted us. That's powerful. Money can't replace that. Okay, so I think there's a lot to unpack about James Franklin itself. The Virginia Tech era, we'll definitely break that down. But looking back at the time, I think it's easy to have revisionist history here, right? I think I was one of the people who was encouraging James Franklin, go screw Penn State over. Like if we're up to me, I would want to like if I had the opportunity to stick it to some program while also getting paid by another program, I might do that. But James Franklin did mention like it wasn't about him penalizing him; it was him just trying to move on. And I think that is a powerful statement that he made in terms of at some point, if you are just taking a contract for $2 million, so Penn State had to pay $7 million to you every year instead of 3. If you were trying to penalize them, like that's always in the back of your mind that you're trying to screw them over instead of just moving on and having a great career at Virginia Tech, right?
Yeah, I had to applaud him for being the bigger man, especially like don't forget about the AD. Remember his conversation behind closed doors that got recorded when
Oh my God.
James Franklin left Penn State?
Yeah.
James had every right after that came out to be, I call him James like he's my friend. James Franklin had every right to be an aggressor. Yeah. He had every right to say, screw this institution. You know, they backtalked me after all I gave them, XYZ. All right. Hey, can I sign a 1-year deal with you, Virginia Tech, for $2 million, and then we'll make it a bigger deal next year. But I just want to screw over Penn State. So I applaud him for being the bigger man. I think it's not easy to do that. As we know, we're all human. And even more so, I think this is it's a good look for James Franklin. And I think it's a healthy way to start. It's funny to say this too after the parachuting thing. It's a healthy way to start your career at Virginia Tech. Start on a good note.
Exactly.
Start a good note with your family and with yourself and with Penn State, and move on from that and get off on the right foot. I think that's going to help. I think that just aids to having success at a new program. And then last thing I'll say is I think that shows a lot about his character, which is always a good tactic for recruiting. It's a good tactic for bringing people in. It sounds like from what we know, he's a genuinely good guy. And a quote like, they wanted me here. Money can't buy that. People that talk in that light, I tend to feel favorably towards and think highly of. I think that's money talks, as we know, especially in a business like that with how much money college football coaches can make. So the fact that he's willing to set aside differences, willing to not screw over an old foe or an old friend, now maybe foe, says a lot about his character. And I do think that that bodes well for him and like Virginia Tech's future when you think about it from recruiting, character development, player development, and what that will relate to on field. I think it just bodes well in all those aspects.
I think there's an aspect of it too where you and I, we have our fun about James Franklin. I mean, there's fun, like some of the things he says are corny as hell. Some of the things he does, and obviously the losing in big games at Penn State became a meme at that point. I will say this: I think there's an aspect of James Franklin doing this that he gets the sport in a way. I think there's so many like kids, recruits, fans. You can spot out the coach that just wanted another contract at another program, but he isn't all in. You can spot out the coach that's like he's 70% in, got fired from his dream job, is bummed to be fired. Like if you probably gave James Franklin truth serum, he thought he would tell you he probably would retire at Penn State. He loved Penn State. He probably still loves Penn State. But at the same time, I think if he was looking at this in a position where he was just trying to penalize Penn State, then he wouldn't be giving Virginia Tech all that he could as a head coach. And I think coaches, players, recruits, they all can spot that phoniness from coaches. Part of being a coach is selling. I call Jed Fish a used car salesman, the way he talks. Like he's a great offensive coach, but he just like rubs me the wrong way sometimes. James Franklin is like a more luxury car salesman. Like you can tell he's lying through his teeth sometimes, but like he's so good with his words, he'll still charm you. But like and then there's other coaches, other programs that you can tell what they're saying they fully believe, but it's just wrong. But then there's that one coach or that one program that you can be like, that guy's not in it. That guy's not in it to be here. He's just saying what he has to because he's getting the extra comma in his contract to be there. And look, this bodes well for Virginia Tech. He was asked about a lot of what Virginia Tech's going to look like at the end of the first quarter of the spring game. He told Virginia Tech fans we're about to shock the world. I don't know if they're going to be there yet this year, but I think in terms of how James Franklin wants to build a team, it bodes well.
Yeah, I agree. I think it's a good tactic to building, especially when you're building from scratch, presumably, right? Like let's not pretend Virginia Tech was on the up before he joined. When you're trying to build a program from quite literally the bottom up, you need character. You need character in yourself. That's how you set culture. And it's really hard to build a program from nothing if you don't have that sort of positive culture. So good on him. I respect him for it. I wouldn't have blamed him if he decided that he wanted to screw over Penn State. Wouldn't have been mad about that. But I do heavily respect him being the bigger man in that moment. And yeah, I think it's just a good way. Again, I'm laughing because it's a great way to start your tenure at Virginia Tech. And then as I'm saying that, I'm just picturing the dude dangling from the scoreboard. So it's just,
oh my God.
It's like now that I know, like, just knowing that in hindsight, it's like so funny talking about your start at Virginia Tech. But it is a good way to start your career at Virginia Tech. Start on the right foot. It teaches a good lesson to your family, your kids, and your athletes. Yeah, I know you're thinking about it too now. I see you smiling over there. It's just a funny video.
Keep putting it in my head. I've gotten it out of my head at this point, but you keep putting it back in. I'll agree with you here. I think, though, just like moving into the Virginia Tech aspect, there was an aspect of, he said it in his interview with Josh Pate. When you are at a position where, yes, you're fired from your job, but you've made money, you have programs who are interested in talking to you, you don't have to go out and take the first job that comes to you. You can ask hard questions. And that's one of the reasons he's at Virginia Tech. Not only are they paying him good money, but he was able to ask them, like, hey, from this year to this year, you guys have not invested a lot in your football program, or at least at the level you need to. So yes, Brent Pry was your head coach, and yes, he went like 24 and 36 in his time. So that's not good enough. He deserves to be fired. But where did you hold up your end of your bargain for Brent Pry to give him the opportunity to win? And I think he was telling them, like telling Pate that that's where one of the reasons that Virginia Tech realized they needed to level up in order to get coaches the caliber of James Franklin. Because let's not beat around the bush, man. James Franklin is an excellent football coach. Is he your A tier? I gotta go get this guy? No. But in terms of like caring for the young men, developing the young men, recruiting at a high level, and building a program, he's always done everything right. And one of the hardest things to do in sports is not build the program, but it's to sustain it. And he did both at Penn State. He built a winning program, and he sustained the winning. Yes, some years were better than others, but that's just the circle of life in college football. Like, you're not going to have the same roster or the same level of talent or the same injury luck every year. But I think anyone who's like, we'll joke about the parachuter accident today, and we can joke about it because the guy's okay. But I think people who want to just think that James Franklin's riding off in the sunset just so he can go 7-6 for 3 more years and then retire, I think they don't understand what he can do at Virginia Tech now that he has basically made it clear he's gotten the resources he needs.
Yeah, absolutely. And he had a good reflection about, like, kind of on the resources note. He had a good reflection about his time at Penn State, where he mentioned to Josh Pate that he felt like he became a little bit too much of a CEO at Penn State.
Yeah.
There's a good article that you have. Maybe we should put that in like a tweet or something, or we can reply to our own with it. It's interesting. He talks about his reflection time, which is really good. Obviously, any time in life you move on from something that was important to you, there's a good moment to reflect. And he did that, which is great because as a coach, you want to see that growth. And he took time to reflect and talked about how he was less in the weeds than he wanted to be at Penn State. He talked a little bit about how, he spent more time being a CEO. He spent more time trying to figure out NIL deals, spent more time trying to figure out boosters, trying to organize them, trying to organize funding, trying to get recruits, make boosters happy. Being a college football coach is very difficult, which is why we're seeing, these general managers get hired and player personnel directors get hired and roles for that. And he just felt like he was not in the weeds. He said that he felt like he wasn't the one on the field coaching his team in practice. He felt like he wasn't the one hands-on with the running backs, making sure that they were performing. And he's like, I had good coaches. He trusts them. That's great. But you're the head coach. It's important that you are there in those moments. So At Virginia Tech, I think not only are they investing in him, which is important, and they're going to invest in the football team, but I think his own investment in like his understanding of what went wrong and what can help go right, being more of a head coach. And yeah, you're going to have to be a CEO. There's no two ways around that in today's college football. But that reflection period, that presumed growth that's going to come from that is going to be huge for Virginia Tech. I think that's going to be when you get the combination of, okay, this program is going to invest in this, like you said, a great football coach. Sure that, yeah, it's funny when he goes 1-17 against ranked teams or whatever the stat is, but he's a good football coach. And if you can let him be more of a football coach, who's to say that that doesn't improve over time, especially if he's got alignment from AD, alignment from boosters, and he's spending less time trying to make people happy. And what we know about his AD at Penn State sounds like there's probably a lot of work he had to do to keep things, healthy. And maybe he doesn't have that at Virginia Tech. And who's to say that Virginia Tech doesn't invest in him? There's no politics that he needs to work on. He doesn't need to be a used car salesman anymore or a luxury car salesman. And now he can be a true football coach in an easier conference. It's not going to happen year one, but I would love to see a world where Virginia Tech is back on top of the ACC. I say back. I don't really know if that ever happened, but is on top of the ACC in 2,
in the
3, 4
days,
years. Yeah, that's fair. They were good.
I think one of the things with James Franklin is anyone who's listening to this thinks we're like huge James Franklin fans. I think if you've listened to this 1 year of this podcast, you'll know we've called him out. But I also want to like point out it's not just a reflection period, because I don't want to make it sound like this guy got fired and then took like 2 years off to reflect. He took like 3 weeks off, and then all of a sudden he was a Virginia Tech coach.
Yeah.
So he took a month off. So I don't know how much of it was fully like reflecting on everything that went wrong, but I do know that once again, you give the guy truth serum. Penn State was the spot for him, and I fully believe today and before he was fired, he has and had a true love for Penn State. I think Penn State, look, the firing we don't need to rehash, but there's an aspect of without James Franklin, the program at Penn State might be nothing right now. And I know some people, especially college football traditionalists, say there's no way that could be a factor. They've always invested, they've always done a lot, but people don't remember that when James Franklin got hired, it was because Bill O'Brien had taken over after all the crap that happened there in the early aughts, and then Bill O'Brien leaves for the Texans. Penn State's football program could have gone one way or another. Bill O'Brien saved the program. James Franklin had to save it a second time to make sure that they could elevate and grow and move past the scandal, move past the terrible stuff. You know what I'm talking about. And he built them into something that, like, by the time he was done at Penn State, no one talks about that. Like obviously people talk about it, but like Penn State's known for being an excellent football program. And that's James Franklin's doing. And he was fired. And like you said, you brought up the Penn State AD, Pat Kraft. Yeah, we saw those comments. We saw him have to come out and apologize. The difference between him at Virginia Tech and at Penn State, for me, Virginia Tech, he's the guy. Now, the football coach of most programs is the guy, but at Virginia Tech, he's the come here and save us. Penn State, at one point in the last couple of years, and it's their right, but at one point in the last couple of years, shifted their vision of we're so thankful for what this guy did for us to it's just not good enough anymore. And they can think that it's probably true. Like maybe two things can be true. He could go be excellent at Virginia Tech, but he wasn't good enough for this iteration of Penn State. And I think that's a lot of the arguments you were making when he got fired. But if I were to ask you this, Jace, like in 5 years, 4 years, if I told you James Franklin's 6-2 against top 25 teams, top 10 teams at Virginia Tech, like in 2 losses being this year and next year because he's building the program, would you be surprised? I personally wouldn't.
Not honestly, I don't know. I'd be impressed for sure. Maybe a little surprised, but nothing crazy, right? Like it all comes down to at Virginia Tech. What is the path to growing in the ACC? And honestly, this is a question I don't think I have an answer to. What does recruiting at Virginia Tech look like? It worked well for him this year, able to bring a lot of guys he had ties with from Penn State to Virginia Tech. The recruiting class looks pretty good on paper. Obviously, that's a whole other story. Can you sustain that? And winning games, going 6-2 in top 10 games and being atop the ACC is a big way to sustain that. So I'm trying to stall because I don't think I have an answer to our question of what does that look like? Would
No,
you be surprised? It's a tough question to answer. I would be a little surprised, but
no,
go ahead.
that's completely fine. You don't need to have like a research answer to that. I think the conversation is like in terms of recruiting with James Franklin. It's not like he went from the Northeast to Nevada. All of his connections, all of the high schools that he had a 10-minute flight, 10-minute helicopter ride, or an hour flight to, or whatever high schools he went to in the Northeast area to bolster his recruiting from day one. They were also they're also easily accessible at Virginia Tech. Now the difference is if he can make Virginia Tech cool to play at again, and that's a lot. Don't get me wrong, that's a lot of what recruiting is like. Can you make it cool for the recruits to want to play there? Can you make Enter Sandman fun for the players? Can you make the fans like show up and show out? And can you sell a vision? And I think he knows how to do all of that. So all of his connections, all of the high school coaches he's grown um, good ties with in that Northeast area there. He still has the Southeast connections. To me, as long as he shows a proof of concept of Virginia Tech, and maybe that's using more of the portal this year and next year, just so he can show some life. As long as he shows a proof of concept there, recruiting is not a worry of mine, especially in the ACC. I think like 6-2. That might be a random number that I gave you. I mean, it was, but if I were to, I think the reason I said that is like Miami's not going anywhere. Clemson, I expect, isn't going to be bad for very long. Duke sometimes will be ranked, and then they'll play other teams outside of their conference schedule. And Cal, I expect to be building up under Tosh Lupoy. There's like the ACC is going to be at least above average in terms of some of their programs. He'll have the opportunities to play ranked games, and then we'll see if that was a James Franklin at Penn State syndrome or a James Franklin syndrome of not being able to beat the best of the best.
Yeah, and he won't have an excuse. Not that he really used this excuse, but being in the ACC, like you said, gives you more confidence in the ability to go beat number 20 SMU on the road. Then it's a lot easier to do that than it is to go beat number 2 Ohio State on the road. So he's going to have the opportunities and better opportunities, undoubtedly. And yeah, if he gets recruiting going, the ACC is one of those conferences where if you have a top 25 recruiting class, like if you finish 21st, that's going to be top 3 in the ACC, no doubt. So it's not like the Big Ten where you can finish 20th and that's 7th. That's just, SEC, that could even be like 10th. In the ACC, if you finish top 25, you're pretty much locking in a top 3 class in your conference. He's already locked in one of them. If he you build another one, and then you go big in the portal next year because he's going to have to, and that's just the way the reality of modern college football is. Yeah, he could easily get to that point where all of a sudden they are beating number 20 SMU. They are beating number 17 Clemson. And then, yeah, it's going to be the Miamis. I think that's good. Miami's going to be the team that I think would be the big hurdle for him. That's going to be when they get Miami in their first ACC championship game that he makes. That'll be the game that determines, is this Penn State James Franklin, or is this James Franklin, or is this Virginia Tech James Franklin just a new evolution of him where he's learned all these things from his old days and he's ready to go, get locked and loaded, and bring Enter Sandman some juice that it deserves.
All right. So moving from the ACC to the Big Ten, just a couple quick conversations here. Michigan had their spring game this past weekend, and the overwhelming sentiment I've seen on social media, and you texted me it this morning, is that Michigan fans seem to want Bryce Underwood out of the starting spot at quarterback for Tommy Carr, the 4-star quarterback who came in this year. He's the younger brother of CJ Carr, Notre Dame's quarterback. All I'll say is I saw this tweet from like one of those Michigan burner accounts, and I think it just encapsulates the feelings very well. Underwood is and should still be QB1. Anyone honestly saying otherwise is either overreacting or just being a troll. However, Tommy Carr is not that far behind him, which is what is so frustrating to many of us Michigan fans. Unless Underwood improves on his footwork and accuracy, Tommy will start by the end of the season. So I thought that tweet said it the best. Is it's not that we're mad that Tommy Carr is good and competing for the starting spot. We're mad that Bryce Underwood, this $10 million quarterback, entering year 2, hasn't created a chasm of gap between him and QB2. Like that's the problem for Michigan fans.
Yeah, absolutely. I think there's probably frustration in development, and this will relate to the Keelan Russell conversation we had last week. When you get these expensive, young 5-star QBs, it's a battle of this kid isn't ready to play because he's 19 and he's never seen defenses like we're going to face in the Big Ten. He needs time, but I can't give him time because if I put this Cadillac in the garage and I don't bring it out forever, what's the point of having it? And my boosters are going to be mad. My fans are going to be upset, and Bryce is probably going to transfer. So you don't always have time, and this is the perfect case of it, right? He only played in the first quarter. A little bit of stats here. He was 3 of 9 for 22 yards. And then a lot of analysts, this is a quote, analysts have noted that he had several missed opportunities, including overthrows, difficulty reading the defense, and just showed general signs of being lost. That's not, when you have a $10 million 19-year-old 5-star QB, that's not a lot of confidence. And not that Kyle Whittingham can't coach a quarterback, but he's not known for his QB development. Like, that's not a strength
Yeah.
that I think you would attribute to Kyle Whittingham. And like you said, it's a great thing that they have Tommy Carr, who is playing really well. They like noted for him was accuracy was good, arm strength was good, but what was exceptional, they said, was his feel in the pocket, his footwork, and his ability to escape when he needed to. Whereas people have felt that Bryce was escaping before he needed to, just out of fear, not really knowing what to do. There's a lot of difference in watching those two things. And I think you're right with that burner tweet. I like the idea of, not like the idea, I agree with the idea that Bryce Underwood will be QB1. Kyle Whittingham did announce that after the game. Like, that's not like speculation. That's a real thing. He is still QB1. They see him that way. But it is not unreasonable to think after 3 or 4 games, they start off with Oklahoma early in the season. If he doesn't play well in a game like that, and as we talk about Brent Venables a lot, that's a tough defense to read. He disguises a lot of blitzes. That's not something that Bryce Underwood is going to have an easy time just deciphering. That's a good defense. We'll see if Tommy Carr gets minutes in a game like that. We'll see if he gets minutes down the line. It's a good problem to have when you have a really good backup that makes you nervous about your starter. But I do understand the fear. I understand kind of the sentiment from Michigan fans of getting a little nervous about Bryce Underwood and what that means. And the only saving grace for them is you've spent $10 million on him. He's expensive. By next year, $10 million is going to be cheap. So you're going to have him for cheap next season, just the way his contract has worked out. But yeah,
Okay.
interesting game for
You're wearing a Detroit hat. You are from the state of Michigan. I need like the fact that this is a debate right now. I need you to give me the pulse of the people in Michigan. Like if for like Michigan fans, like go to grab one. I don't know. Like how bad would it be if Bryce Underwood isn't ready? It still isn't ready. How bad would it be for like I hate to make this argument right now. I hate to be like the boy who cried wolf, or I like call like starting a panic if there doesn't need to be one. Maybe they're holding a lot of stuff back for him. Maybe he's doing a lot better than what he looked like in spring ball right now, and in that first quarter of the spring game, going 3 for 9 for 20 yards. But in the couple snaps that we still saw the same footwork issues. We still saw the same drop back where it feels like he's short arming passes. And Kyle Whittingham, when he got the Michigan job, I think he said it's a McAfee or somebody that he didn't have a quarterbacks coach. Sharon Moore didn't give him a quarterbacks coach. You bring in a $10 million quarterback and you don't give him a coach. Like the OC was just there, and he's working with the whole offense, but he didn't have a dedicated quarterbacks coach to work on his motion, on his footwork, on anything. And I hate bringing up comparisons like this because people at home, the haters, will try to say, "Oh, you're only saying it because of race." But one of the things that like you brought up that excited me about Tommy Carr is footwork, not footwork, feel in the pocket, understanding when to move up in the pocket or scramble out. Whereas with Bryce Underwood, it was almost he just escaped because he was not afraid, but he was just he was about to take a sack, so he escaped the pocket. Feel in the pocket matters more to me than anything else. And like being comfortable in the pocket, knowing when to get out of there so you can make comfortable throws instead of rush throws. That's where interceptions come from. That's where a defender is going to hit your elbow because you're taking a rush throw late. That's where you could get hurt. That's where you could fumble the ball. That's where just bad things happen. If you, I always equate it. If you are a Bo Nix and you just know everything that's happening to you at this point, you'll still get sacked, but you won't get got. And And heading into year 2, it does worry me that the quarterback they made such an investment to, and once again, I hate when people say like you make this comparison because it's race or whatever, but he still looks like a raw athletic superstar and not a quarterback just yet.
Yeah, I completely agree. I think if I could give truth serum to my Michigan friends, I think they would tell you they are nervous and probably thoroughly worried about the idea that Bryce Underwood is truly a quote unquote bust. I would also think they would tell you that they are very relieved that Tommy Carr looks pretty legit. Because I think if they lived in a world where Tommy Carr doesn't exist and they don't have another option and Bryce is not good, I think they'd be very disappointed if Michigan has a 6-6 season and Bryce just never develops. At least now they have a backup plan, and I think that being very relieved that your backup is solid is very telling of what you think of your starter. If you ask a program like, okay, Fabo and I are Oregon fans, Dylan Raiola is going to be the backup quarterback for Dante Moore this year. I have not really once checked in on the status of Dylan Raiola in terms of how he's playing, how he's doing. I'll see a quote here and there or something on Twitter, but I haven't seen one piece of content about how he's playing, and I haven't really sucked that out. In terms of what I'm looking for from Oregon, that's not something I care about because I know my QB1 is solid. I'm confident Dante Moore is the guy, and I'm confident he's the answer, and I'm confident he's a good quarterback. Therefore, I'm not really thinking too much about my backup. And if I almost even to that point, I don't know if I want to hear my backup quarterback's name in the news because that's probably not a good thing. And I think Michigan fans, the fact that Tommy Carr is, I see on Twitter a lot of like, oh, I didn't know that was CJ Carr's son or CJ Carr's brother. Sorry, man. The birthdays just got me messed up. That's not like people are like learning this information of like the personal information of your backup quarterback. And I'm thinking when I'm reading this, like this is all cool to learn. Not a good sign when you're learning personal information about your backup QB in April. That's not a good sign.
Yeah.
So I think that's
telling. No, I think okay, so most of that I think is right. I'll say this about this Oregon thing. How do I put it? I'll only pay attention to Dylan Raiola because I hope that you're absolutely right. That like if your quarterback is the guy, you're not going to pay attention to your backup quarterback. But just knowing your program, I know that if Dylan Raiola had to step in for a game, God forbid something happens to Dante Moore, I think Oregon would be fine. I think the roster, the makeup of the team, everything is further ahead than where Michigan is at this point after 2 down years with Sherrone Moore and trying to come back with Kyle Whittingham. I think Michigan could be really good this year, but I don't think their roster is stacked like Oregon's, right? Like I think if Dylan Raiola had to take a half, he's played 2 years of Division I college football, ups and downs, sure. But I think Oregon with him would still have the run game. They would have the receivers. They would have the defense. They would have the offensive line. They would be able to plan around not having Dante Moore out there. And who knows? It might just be like, hey, Dylan, go get your snaps because you're going to be the starter next year. It's not guaranteed. But I guess what I'm trying to say is if Dylan Raiola had to play for Oregon, it's worst case scenario. But they would still probably be fine. Maybe championship ceiling goes away. If Tommy Carr plays for Michigan, there's a world right now that's best case scenario, and that's what scares me.
Like that's very well said.
For me, it's not the fact that like he's good. That's great. You should be recruiting good. For me, it's the fact that the guy that you gave all his money to, the guy that you stole from LSU, the guy that should be developing into a bona fide number one overall picks in the NFL draft next year after his junior year, still looks like developing's fine. Every kid is developing at this point. NFL players are still developing, but still looks like he's learning how to play quarterback. That's what worries me.
Yeah, I have a kind of chicken or the egg hypothetical. I'm going to give you a question, and then I'm going to give a little bit of thoughts, and I'm going to hand it over to you because I'm curious. Question is, do you think Bryce Underwood has any regret of not staying committed to LSU? And then my thoughts I'll provide before I hand it over to you is, obviously in hindsight, he did not. Now he knows that they have Lane Kiffin. Lane Kiffin is a much more well-known QB developer and QB producer than Kyle Whittingham. Obviously, he didn't know at the time, but he does now. So I'm sure that adds to regret if he felt it. And secondly, the chicken or the egg part is Bryce just not very good, or did Michigan / Sharon Moore and the lack of a QB coach be the one to not develop him, and that's the reason why he's not panning out? But yeah, do you think Bryce Underwood has any regrets of not sticking with LSU originally?
I'm sure there's something there, but I also say this. I want to preface it. I don't think that Bryce is a bust yet. I think that's way too early to call a kid a bust. He's going into year 2 of his college football career. It could only get better from here. I absolutely do not want to make it out that I'm just this panicked fan that thinks he's a terrible player and Michigan wasted $10 million. I'm just saying this is what it looks like right now. But give me until week 2. Week 2, he could be lighting the world on fire. But to answer your question, I'm sure there's part of him that's like, maybe LSU would have developed me more. I don't know. Do you want to go play for Sherrone Moore or Brian Kelly? Neither of which are there at their current programs anymore for different reasons. But I think the $10 million spoke a lot, as it should, or whatever he got paid. And I also think realistically, it's not necessarily. I think it could be both, but we see the raw traits and talent. We don't know how much Michigan poured into developing him, but I think if it were me, if it were my football program, and if I suddenly got a Bryce Underwood to be my quarterback recruit, I would hopefully have a quarterback in place so he doesn't have to start year 1. And I would too, hopefully have a quarterbacks coach that I'm like, hey buddy, that's your best friend for the next 3 years. Like anytime he's in the building, he is with you. You guys are talking shop. You're watching film. You're talking about coverages. You're talking about protections, whatever it is. Everything you're talking about is going towards his development. And it could it feels like to me that Michigan didn't do that. Now, I don't know if that is like Michigan tried and it didn't register, or the message didn't get through, or if it was more Michigan didn't have a quarterbacks coach for him and he didn't develop fast year 1. But once again, this is year 2 for Bryce Underwood. The kid has all of the tools to be special. I just don't think he's off to a hot start yet.
I think the issue is they never asked Bryce if he prefers vanilla or chocolate ice cream. It's clear he would have hesitated, and they would know. No, I do think I'll say this, and for people that know me and we talk sports off the pod, they'll know where I stand here. I do think that I shouldn't say Michigan. I think Sherrone Moore failed Bryce Underwood. I agree wholeheartedly with Kevin O'Connell when he says programs and teams fail quarterbacks. Quarterbacks don't fail programs and teams. I think as an 18-year-old kid, that is absolutely true. You and I have seen how a football program runs. Granted, we were pretty fortunate to be with the program we were, but you saw how much effort and energy went into quarterbacks and developing their mind, developing their understanding of football, their confidence, getting the mental side of the game locked in. And we've seen how much that's worked for Oregon QBs. Name any program that runs quarterbacks similarly to Oregon. They all have these, like Lincoln Riley, right? Spends a lot of time with QBs. Look at all of his QBs in the NFL. Look at the Ducks QBs in the NFL. Not having a QB coach is insane to me. That is not talked about enough. How they had no QB coach for a
place like Michigan where you have the money to do it.
Yeah, exactly. Like that'd be like buying the most expensive car in the world and then having having it crash once and be like, I'm not going to take it to a dealer. We're just going to let it sit here. And maybe one day I'll wake up and it's fixed. No, take it somewhere. You go get that thing fixed. Get a QB coach. So it's good that Kyle Whittingham is here for Bryce Underwood's sake, obviously. And I think just for Michigan as a whole. But to have a QB coach, he's still new. He's still young. He's still new to Kyle Whittingham. I mean, he's still new to the QB coach situation. I think he'll learn. I think he'll grow. I'm saying this because I'm with you. I don't want people to think we're just doom and gloom calling him a bust, because I don't think I'm ready to do that yet. But it's going to take time. And also, I do think posting the videos of him flipping a behind the back 3-yard pass in practice for a touchdown and kind of victory lapping that, just things like that are not going to bode well among fan bases and among the Twitter world, which I know in the grand scheme of things does not matter at all. But we're fans and we enjoy that aspect of the game. And just videos are like that are the ones where now when they post that next time, every comment's going to be 3 for 9 in the spring game for 22 yards. He stinks. Focus more on throwing the ball forward and back behind your back, which is funny takes and stuff. But I do think, I say all this to say I'm not ready to call him a bust. However, I do think that he was not failed because he's done, but failed by the way Michigan handled things with him under the Sean Moore era. I hope that things pan out for him. I hope things work out. But breathe a sigh of relief, Wolverines fans. Your backup does look good. And my final point that I want to agree with, I really like what you said here. It is never a good sign when your backup QB may be your best case scenario as well. That's a scary thought. It should be where your backup QB makes you a little more nervous about the outcomes of games, not more confident about the outcomes of games. And that's never a good sign.
Look, what's the old adage? Every fan base's favorite player on every team is the backup quarterback when the starter's struggling. If Bryce Underwood goes out week 1 and has a good game, but maybe throws a pick or a couple bad throws here, everyone's going to be calling for Tommy Carr. And at that point, that's not fair for Bryce. He's developing, as we're clearly pointing out. Like, he's growing too, but he's going to get some heat. And it just depends on how Kyle Whittingham, he's got the right coach to protect him, for sure. Kyle Whittingham has dealt with a lot worse quarterbacks at Utah. Not Tyler Huntley, not Devon Dampier, but everyone not Cam Rising, but everyone in between those guys. Kyle Whittingham had to protect because they were not good at all.
Farmer.
And he figured out, Pig Farm. He figured out how to win 8 games with like nobody's a quarterback. I think he can figure something out with Bryce Underwood. That's just my hunch. I'm going to skip the Iowa combo unless you have anything to say about Iowa.
No, I think everyone stands on the same page about that one.
Yeah, basically for everyone, Iowa got 4 games vacated from the 2023 season for tampering with, wait for it, Cade McNamara. Apparently Kirk Ferentz called him the morning of the contact period starting, but he didn't realize that it hadn't started officially yet. So he talked to them like 4 hours too early or whatever that was, and they got 4 games vacated from Cade McNamara's season. Apparently Cade McNamara is still playing college football, by the way. I didn't know that.
Where? How?
I think like East Tennessee State. I don't know. Regardless, as I alluded to at the beginning of the show, Thursday night, the first round of the NFL draft starts. Obviously, Fernando Mendoza is going to go 1. I assume he's going to go 1. There's
safe assumption.
At this point, there's no reason to have any hype. The Raiders are technically on the clock, so they're the only team in the NFL allowed to talk to prospects like directly, other than visits and whatnot. So I'm sure Fernando already has the Raiders playbook. I'm sure he got it 2 months ago. I'm sure Fernando has gotten everything to prepare for the Raiders season, other than a contract to be a Raider. Other than he probably has a Raiders hat already. But the draft starts at the second pick where the Jets start. And we've done our mock draft. I have some questions here for you. But do you have any reflections on the mock draft? Obviously, at this point, I don't even know who we picked where. But are there any changes, anything you would make?
We have the Giants trading up now, as you mentioned earlier.
Yeah.
Just before we hopped on the pod. They traded up to 10 with Cincinnati, sending them Dexter Lawrence. So now they go 5 and 10.
Crazy trade.
Which is interesting. Great. It'll be really fun to see how this pans out, especially with, I know, the Giants with Harbaugh now, and they've invested in some young pieces. We originally had the Giants going Caleb Downs at 5, and we had the Bengals going Spencer Fano at 10. I honestly think that I could just see the Giants sticking with Caleb Downs and then taking Spencer Fano, who we had for the Bengals. I almost comfortably would just say in our version, I could slot that in. But you have a young quarterback, you have a young stud receiver who will be coming back this year in Lake Neighbors. Why not get some O-line help? You're going to attack the defense with Caleb Downs. You might as well. And I pulled this up because I'm curious. I kind of pulled up the DraftKings odds for each pick, who will go where. So for pick number 5, Caleb Downs has the second best odds. Sonny Styles, the other Ohio State elite defensive player, not Arvell Reese, the other really elite Ohio State defense player. I'm talking about the other one, and Sonny Styles. So it sounds like it'll be a defensive Ohio State player out of the Giants at 5, but that's pretty much the only extra information I
think. So that trade's fascinating to me because the Bengals don't pay guys. The kid they drafted, defensive lineman they drafted last year, they almost had to give him up because they couldn't agree to a contract until almost a season. So I'm shocked that the Bengals are basically telling Dexter Lawrence, hey, you're going to come here, we're going to pay you. Because I wouldn't have expected them to be that team that's going to, especially for a 10th overall pick. The Bengals are notoriously one of the, not poor, they're one of the cheapest NFL teams, frugal NFL teams. They sold stadium naming rights so they could pay Joe Burrow's contract without really affecting their own bottom dollar.
That's so.
Regardless of that, let's start with this question. I guess I'm going to add a question because you were bringing it up. In the top 10, over under 4.5 Ohio State players.
Let's see. Sonny Styles, Arvell Reese, Caleb Downs, Cardinal Tate, maybe. That's 4.
So can we find a fifth?
Yeah, I was like, that's insane. They're gonna have 4 top 10. I feel good about saying it. 4.5 is a great line. Did you just set that off the top of your head?
Yeah.
Shoot,
because I think those 4 are guaranteed to go there. So we just need one more.
Do we count players that are not technically like that played for Ohio State at one point and maybe don't anymore? Does that count?
I wouldn't, but I guess if that helps you meet your odds boost, we could.
I think they'll have a 5th in the first round. I'm scrolling through the list of players off the top, just trying to see if there's anyone I'm missing. All right, I'll stick with 4. I think they'll have 4 in the first round, but they'll all be in the top 10. And then I guess one other interesting point, just I have it up, so I wanted to say it to you. What do you think Fernando Mendoza's odds are to be the first overall pick? I'm surprised they even let you bet it. Yeah, minus 20,000.
Oh my God.
The minimum wager they let you do on it is $102. That way you can make $2.
Nice. I really hope people aren't burning away their money.
Cents. No. If you bet $100, it's not even. Okay, if you bet $102 on Fernando Mendoza to be the first overall pick, you would make 51 cents. Not worth it. Just in case something crazy happens, it comes out in the news the second you bet it that Mendoza tore his ACL in a skiing accident. Now you're screwed. I shouldn't even
that doesn't
joke about that. Knock on wood.
Maybe he'll hit the scoreboard parachuting in. The second question I got is over or under, Jace, total receivers drafted in the first round, 5.5. So here we have,
I really like that.
Obviously, we have our obvious options. We have Cardinal Tate, Jordan Tyson, and then you can go into the, what's it called? Like the next round or the next tier of receiver. That's where Makai Lemon comes in. That's where Omar Cooper Jr. comes in. There's so many. Why am I blanking on receivers?
Denzel Boston comes in.
Comes in. Yeah. So I think there's definitely an option for 6 receivers to go in the first round. It does feel a little rich to me, but what do we think?
I'll go with the over. I've been hearing a lot of teams that really like Casey Concepcion, and I feel comfortable that the 5 we just named will be first rounders. It sounds like Cardinal Tate might even go top 10. Teams are falling in love with him. Ohio State wide receiver, why wouldn't you? And then I agree. I think Jordan Tyson's going to be a first-round pick for sure. I do think Makai Lemon finds himself in the first round. I think Denzel Boston finds himself in the first round. And I'll take my wild card of KC being a first-round pick as well, giving me 6. So I'll take that over. I think I actually feel pretty good about that. What book is that on? Might have to.
This is all off of DraftKings.
Okay, I like the 5.5. Where do you stand on that one?
I would probably lean under. I think KC is obviously. I think Cardinal Tate, Jordan Tyson, those guys are obvious first round picks, top 15 picks, definitely. From there, it really depends on where everyone is leaning. Because at that point, to me, as a prospect, is Makai Lemon any better than a early second round receiver that you could get? And why would I want to add the 5th-year option to him? I think Makai Lemon's excellent. I think he's got great hands, a little small. At that point, the offensive line and the defensive line, like people keep saying there's not enough franchise quarterbacks, so this draft is weak. On the offensive and defensive fronts, there are so many same level players after you get past like the 5th overall pick that so many teams might just want to keep bolstering from 15 to 20, 15 to 30. So at that point, knowing how the draft works, all of a sudden at 14, if Jordan Tyson gets taken, we could see a string of 3 more receivers get taken, Casey Concepcion getting taken at 22. But I also see the luck of Casey Concepcion getting taken first pick of the second round, third pick of the second round, whatever it is, and all of a sudden we're under the 6. I think I would take the under, but it's barely the under. Denzel Boston, I think, is the best receiver that no one's talking about right now. Kai Lemon, I like. I think Denzel Boston is. I would rather Denzel Boston, and then Jordan Tyson. I think he's excellent. I don't know about his ceiling as a player. Cardinal Tate, definitely the surest of the sure. Like you plug him, it's plug and play at that point. What Emeka Egbuka was for the Bucks last year, you put him like I see. I'm looking at a mock right now, putting him on the Commanders. You put him next to Scary Terry for Jane Daniels, hopefully healthy. That's going to be a formidable offense. That's what I think on that. Jeremiah Love. This might be not a good line, so I might change it on the fly. Actually, I will change it on the fly. The average draft position, over under, Jeremiah Love draft position, over past the six. Okay, I'm going to restart that. 6.5 is the line. Are we doing past the 6.5 mark or before?
I'm going to go before. I don't think he makes it past the Giants at 5. From what I have, my like normal readings, I don't have any inside info that any fan couldn't just go read on the internet. From what I have read, the Titans really like Jeremiah Love and the Giants like Jeremiah Love. I don't think he makes it out of that. And then there's been people talking about a potential trade so right now the Browns have the 6th pick. They would not take Jeremiah Love. However, there are people that speculate Jerry wants to get up into the top 10.
That's beautiful.
In which case they could slide up to 6. And then I don't think he would take Jeremiah Love. Like, I don't think that would make any sense for the Cowboys. However, when it comes to Jerry, do not factor in what makes sense. Factor in what would make him feel like he's being cool and different. I could see him picking Jeremiah Love. I have Logan. We love Logan. We talk about him on the pod a lot. He's a Cowboys fan. Unfortunately for him, I could just see a world where I just get a text from him, be like, "What are we doing?" And you look at the TV and it's Jeremiah Love at 6 of the Cowboys. I could see that just because it seems like a Jerry thing to do.
I don't hate it.
I'm gonna say under.
That offense would be that offense would be really fun. What I hate about that is the Cowboys just need bodies on that defensive front and in the secondary. And that defense was so bad last year. The offense was excellent, and they had nobodies at running back. I don't hate it. I think it would be kind of fun. I kind of want this to happen now. I'm sorry, but
is that not
at
a
the
Jerry
same
Jones thing to do too?
Oh, 100%. He wants his next Zeke. He wants his next Emmitt Smith. He wants the running back to be he wants the star running back. And Jeremiah Love, yeah, absolutely. Like, since Saquon, he's probably the best and like most flashy running back to come into the draft. And one thing I'll say, the Cowboys, like I said, need bodies on the defensive side of the ball. I think it would be such a disservice to trade 2 picks for a Jeremiah Love. Like, I think that guy's going to be awesome. If he makes it past 5, I might agree with you with that decision a little bit more. But, excuse me, you got to just go get these bodies for that defensive side.
Yeah, I agree. That would by far be the right decision for Dallas, is just to stack bodies. If I'm Dallas, unless let's say they stay at 12. If I'm Dallas and we're staying at 12, my mindset is if there's an elite O lineman available that maybe they fall in love with Caden Proctor or whoever, I don't know, one of the O linemen. If he's there, sure, I get taking that because that does help you protect Dak and you want that longevity there. Javonte Williams was really good last year. That just helps kind of keep that going. And then maybe you just take the other 6 picks or however many they have this year and you just throw that into bodies on the defense. And then if the O-line you don't fall in love with is not there, then I with you just take best available defensive player because there's no level of that defense that's good. So you might as well just take whoever. But again, it's funny because it's easy. The Cowboys look straightforward. It's Jerry freaking Jones, man. You knows what he's going to do.
The thing about this draft is they say like from picks 1 through 9, 1 through 10, you can get like a franchise changing player. Like, there's some special players there. From picks 11 through 32, you can get really good players. They might not have the super high ceilings, but they're all about the same level. Like, the fall from the B tier to the C tier in the first round isn't very far. They're all very similar players. So that's what people are saying. Like, if you keep 12 and 20, you're going to get a similar player at 20 that you got at 12, because we don't like, there's the difference between those guys isn't that high, if that makes sense. Difference in talent. If you have the 6th overall pick, sure. Like, that's way different than what in this draft than 12, and definitely way different than 20. But if you can go out and get, I just saw this mock draft had the Ruben Bain going at 11. And like, if he's there, how could Jerry not want him? There's certain guys that you can get at 12 and 20 just for bodies, and that's a bad way to describe the first round. But they just need that on the defensive side.
Yeah. The Cowboys are a team that have a pretty straightforward path in the drafts. If Jerry can follow a map, that's great for him because the map is pretty laid out for him. Take bodies on the defensive side. We'll see if he can do that. Another team that I find on the or not another team, but a team I find on the opposite side as the Cowboys, where I feel like there's 19 valid directions they could go, and it's an important team, is the Chiefs. I've seen a lot of people talk about Jordan Tyson or wide receiver, which make a lot of sense. But also with Patrick Mahomes, and I don't know if you need to try, like Jordan Tyson to me feels high risk, high reward. And I don't know if he feels like a Xavier Worthy. So I don't know if personally I'm sold that they're going to go wide receiver.
100%.
I could see them going O-line. I also think that's a team that Chris Jones is getting older. I could see them trying to get a running mate on the defensive line. They have pick 9 too, so it's hard to project, like, is Ruben Bain going to fall? And if that happens, do you take him? If you get a Francis Maui-Noah available at 9, it's hard to turn down a franchise tackle for your superstar quarterback. You also maybe want to get him a weapon, but what happens if insert X, they just lost, what's his, McDuffie? Is that who I'm thinking of correctly?
Yeah,
they just lost
a
a big-time
McDuffie
corner.
to the Rams.
Yeah, do you go with, I know there's a lot of people that are high on McCoy and Delane. Do you go with one of them? So I'm curious where you land on the Chiefs. Everyone mocks them to Jordan Tyson, but I'm not sold that that's a done deal.
I think the thing is, Jordan Tyson's ceiling is really exciting. And mind you, the Chiefs have 2 picks in this draft. In the first round, they have the 29th pick too. One thing I'll say about this draft for the Chiefs, I think the Chiefs and the Commanders, I said the Commanders, the Chiefs and the Commanders are amongst the group name that they'll write off last year, right or wrong, because of injury and injury to their quarterback. And they're amongst the teams. I know. It's
no.
Jason's
I'm laughing because
today.
I am. I'm laughing because I'm thinking of the guy Dalen from the scoreboard again.
Oh my god, it was an hour ago.
Get out of my head, dude. I'm sorry.
No, you're good. So on that, going back to the Chiefs and Commanders, the Chiefs, at least to me, feel like, so in 2016 or whatever, I'm a Laker fan, and the Lakers ended up with like the 2nd overall pick in the NBA draft, and Kobe at the time said, "Don't F it up. We're not planning on." Now it didn't work out. They were still bad for years to come, but the premise of what Kobe was saying is, we're not planning on drafting here next year. We're not planning on drafting here in 2 years. So make sure you make the right pick. Now, for the Chiefs, you could make the argument that you could go offensive line. I think the offensive line, for the most part, was okay last year. It wasn't necessarily the problem. Their problem was, outside of throwing to an old Travis Kelce, nothing was working. Rashee Rice has off-the-field issues. He's suspended half the time. Sky Moore, they got rid of, obviously. Xavier Worthy, injury issues. And he hasn't reached, and looks like probably won't reach, that top end ceiling that we thought he would have. I think if you're going to go receiver, like their problem last year was they just invited defenses to just shrink the field, because they're like, well, they're not going to throw outside. So running the ball was harder. Kelce wasn't as explosive that they could just throw him in the slot or move around. And when Kelce did have plays, the defense had shrunk the field so much that it was so hard for him to move the ball anywhere to him. So it's almost like taking a top end receiver would actually help this a lot. But I don't know if Jordan Tyson is the value that I would want if I'm the Kansas City Chiefs and not planning on doing this again next year and then drafting 9th. So I think this is where the Chiefs should start looking at either. I've seen Kenyon Sadiq mocked to them at 9. If you want to trade down, maybe take him at 12. I really don't want Andy Reid to get his hands on Kenyon Sadiq, because I think he can do some pretty great things with him. Outside of that, I think this is the time where if you're drafting 15 or 32, which the Chiefs normally are, you go best player available, offensive, defensive, whatever. You're drafting top 10. Go grab a weapon for your franchise quarterback that you haven't been able to get at 29 to 32 that you've been picking at for years, and it hasn't worked. One of the reasons, the punishment for how good they've been, but the guys that they've drafted 29 and 32 just have not panned out, and were one of the reasons that they weren't as good. The offense couldn't move the ball last year. If somehow, some way, Cardinal Tate can be up there, like if you're the Chiefs, you're at 9. Would you package 9 and 29 to move up to 6? See if you can get Cardinal Tate. I probably
would be. I love that hypothetical. You should call the Chiefs. That is like gorgeous. And I'm not a Chiefs fan, so I'm not saying this as a fan. I'm saying this as someone who respects good football. That would be unbelievably fun to watch, and also unbelievably dangerous. If the Chiefs got their hands on Cardinal Tate, and then he is who a lot of people think he's going to be, and he's a superstar day one, that is a problem. If they can get him somehow at 9, it sounds like that's just not going to happen. But if they can get him somehow at 9, even better.
Yeah.
Similar, like they're in a tough spot. Well, they're not actually in a tough spot, but in the drafts, the way it stacks up, they're in a tough spot because at 9, I think you just miss out on the guarantee of Cardinal Tate. But yeah, like you said, do you trade up or do you stay and do you take Jordan Tyson? Obviously, very high ceiling for Jordan Tyson, but I think he also comes with a pretty low floor or high risk there. And then on the flip side, at 22, is that where you said they picked the second one? I've
29.
At 29,
they got the range.
You're a little too late. That's right. You're a little too late for Kenyon Sadiq. So similarly, again, great fit, great player, but I think just a little too late, unfortunately, to get Kenyon Sadiq. So yeah, it'll be interesting. Do you move up? Do you not? I know there's a lot of talk of a lot of people have mixed feelings, but the people that are on Eli Stowers and like him also have said he's really good receiving tight end. They've equated him to kind of could be a Travis Kelce in that way. Did they reach a little bit? If you call to reach at 29, did they just wait to the second round to take him? The Chiefs, to me, have a lot of options that are all going to be productive for them. I think they're just in such a good spot in terms of the team's going to be good next year. Hopefully, obviously, they're healthy. And if those two things happen with all these draft picks they have, and they hit on 2 or 3 of these guys, that we're going to be watching the Chiefs in the Super Bowl again in a year or 2.
The other option is stick at 9 and 29. Take Kenyon Sadiq. If you want to go all helping Mahomes out, which I would argue this is the year to do it. But if you want to go all in on that, at 9, take Kenyon Sadiq. At 29, take a flyer on Casey Concepcion. Now, I don't know if you want to do that. Maybe you want to replace Trent McDuffie, get the corner out of Toledo at 29. But there's options there. All right, I'm going to rapid fire a little bit. Maybe we'll discuss a little bit. 2 more questions. Last year at this time, we were entering the week of the draft. And I could have, I don't think we talked about this much, but by Sunday, by the next time we record a podcast, Shedeur Sanders was the story of the weekend. His fall to the 5th round last year. We didn't expect that. We were talking about maybe he's a first rounder, probably a first rounder. Obviously, the fall became a story in the first round, the second round, the third round, the 4th round, until the Browns took him in the 5th round. Are there any surprise stories? Now, I didn't prep you for this, so I understand if we don't know. No. Is there anything crazy that you foresee happening in this year's draft? Like, are we expecting I doubt it because they just traded for Dexter Lawrence, which means it's a win now thing. But is Joe Burrow getting traded? Are we expecting something huge, or is this going to be run of the mill?
I do think we'll get a crazy Cowboys trade that will involve a lot of draft picks to move up, or I would guess move up. So I'll go with that. I'll go, one headline will be Cowboys trade a lot to move up to take head-scratching player. That's a head. Can I give you my headlines for this answer? Jerry trades up to take head-scratching pick. That is Jeremiah Love. Okay. That's going to be one crazy headline I'll go with. Another one, I'll go Cardinals trade up to take Ty Simpson. And I think that's going to be also, people are going to talk about way too early. I'll give that as a, Not trade up to 2. Sorry, like the Cardinals just trade up in general. To take. Sorry, just to take the verb. Ty Simpson there. I think that's going to happen, and I think that'll be too early. And then the last one I'll say is Ruben Bain falls way too far. I think I've heard people like there's stuff I have no idea if anything is credible or not, so I don't really want to go into it. There's been off the field potential maybe issues around Ruben Bain, and if any of those come to be true, or even if it's true or not, if it scares teams enough, I think he could fall. So I'll give the third headline I'll give is Ruben Bain falls deep. And it's going to be one of those things like Jalen Carter, where he's going to fall, and then a really good team is going to get what it probably should have been a top 5 pick at 30. And now we're like, oh, the Chiefs got Carnell Tate at 9 because Jerry traded up and made a dumb pick. And then they get Ruben Bain at 29. And then next year when they're in the Super Bowl and they're amazing, we're going to be sitting there like, of course, how do we not see this? It's exactly what happened with the Eagles a couple of years ago. The Chiefs are kind of lined up just like the Eagles to, you take 2 really good productive players, you take the guy that's falling because everyone's a little nervous, and now all of a sudden you have a superstar team again. The Chiefs, I think, are going to be that this upcoming year. Sorry for your bolts. I know that is not fun to hear, but
that's all right. The AFC West is going to be a really fun division because that leads to the last question I have. I love everything the Raiders are doing. And I think if Fernando Mendoza, look, he doesn't have to be a world beater at quarterback, but I think the Raiders are, we saw the situation. So Caleb Williams went into a situation in Chicago where we thought was going to be good, but unfortunately Matt Eberflus was the coach. Like, we didn't think he was going to be like setting the world on fire, but it was, they had DJ Moore. They had a formidable offense of like talent around him, but it wasn't great. Jay Daniels went to a situation that like we had no idea how to feel about it, but he made a lot good about it. There's so many young rookie quarterbacks who go into drafts and go on to teams who get drafted early on, and they're killed right away because they don't have a lot of talent around them. The Raiders, last year, a lot of their offensive line issues. Pete Carroll's son was the offensive line coach, and he was refusing to fire him. Chip Kelly left the team. They said he was fired. He left the team. Colton Miller was hurt. Colton Miller was a pretty above average to excellent left tackle. JPJ at one of the guard spots. They bring in the league's best center, Tyler Lindenbaum, at center. Could use some more offensive line help, but the offensive line looks fine. They got the best or second best tight end in the league, depending on who you ask, in Brock Bowers. They got some receivers developing. Now, their defense might give up 30, but in terms of Ashton Genty, a running back, I expect them to maybe draft another running back at some point, or just have a 2 or 3-headed monster with Clint Kubiak that they have right now. And I fully expect, like, they're setting up Fernando Mendoza for all the success they can have. One of the things that could actually get me to take the over on the 5.5 receivers is the Raiders trading back into the first round to take Omar Cooper Jr. So Fernando can have one of his guys on the Raiders with him. That is, I don't expect him to be like excellent, but Clint Kubiak's a really good offensive coach. They've done everything that the Ben Johnson did entering year one. Fix the offensive line first, figure out talent around him next. Ben Johnson's first 3 moves as the Bears coach was Drew Dahlman at center, Joe Tooney at left guard, and Jonah Jackson at right guard. Yeah, let's fix the interior where the guys were our most valuable assets protected. That's what the Raiders did, and I love everything that they've done so far. It scares you as an AFC West fan, because the Chiefs are the Chiefs. The Chargers are looking to be really good again, but what's their overall ceiling with Mike McDaniel as the offensive coordinator? The Raiders are formidable. The Broncos just made the AFC title game, but lost it because Bo Nix was hurt. Dude, the NFC North, AFC West are just, I don't know, like they need to split those divisions up a little bit.
Yeah, especially with the NFC South going on like year 9 of just being horrible. I really like Fernando Mendoza. Yeah, I like your Raiders take, and I like Mendoza. I like the track that they're headed on. I'm with you. I think it might take a year or two. Like I'll probably say the Raiders will be a pretty fun and frisky like 7-10 this year. They're going to have growing pains with a new team, a new QB. The defense isn't great. They might even be like 6-11. But I think they'll be fun and frisky. Their offense is going to be good. I think there's a world where maybe they win a game, at Arrowhead, and it's kind of fun and exciting on a Thursday night. I think they'll pull off a win or two where you watch them like this team's going places. Give me 6-11 for the Raiders this year. They're going to get a good draft pick. I like what that sets them up to do with maybe building the defense next season, because I think this year is how do we help Mendoza as much as possible? Let's go offense. Next year, you go 6-11, you get a good draft pick, you draft a really good defensive player. That's the year. 2027 would be the season that they go 10-7. And now it's okay, the Raiders are on the up. And then it's the year after where they're 14-3 and Mendoza's really good and Tom Brady's got this thing humming. I really like that. I really like that he's involved. If there's any guy I want helping my QB, it's going to be Tom Brady. They're not similar personalities in the way that they like carry themselves, but they seem to have similar mindsets on the game of football. Yes, that's a great way to put it. Thank you. They're football nerds. I really think that is going to be a very beneficial relationship for Fernando Mendoza.
100%.
I am high on him. And before we log off for the show, actually, let's talk a little dynasty football. Let me get your thoughts here. I have the 3rd overall pick in my dynasty draft. This will test if my league mates watch the show. Now you're welcome, because you get insights that I'm not giving any of you. I have the 3rd overall pick. Jeremiah Love is going to go 1, right? 2, I think he's debating between whatever wide receiver ends up in the best spot or Fernando Mendoza. If Fernando Mendoza is available for me at 3, do you like that pick? I have my current QBs are Joe Burrow, Bo Nix, and Daniel Jones, and it's a 2 QB league.
I don't right now, and I might be completely off base here. Look, it depends on how deep this league is and what technical round this is, because if you're telling me this is the 17th round, sure, yeah, I like it. But if this is to replace one of the quarterbacks you got, I don't know, because here's the deal. With Clint Kubiak, did really good things as an offensive coordinator. We know who his dad is, Gary Kubiak. Gary Kubiak and Mike Shanahan, best friends. What did both of them just like? I've heard another podcaster talk about the Shanahans and the Kubiaks might as well be brothers. Like, they are the same. Like, they might as well just add a dash in between their last names and just take each other's names on, because they love running the hell out of the ball. And what was Seattle so good at this year? Sam Darnold was excellent, but Clint Kubiak managed to coach around the Sam Darnold disaster games as well. And Kenneth Walker just signed that massive deal with Kansas City because of Clint Kubiak's run scheme, because of the Shanahan Kubiak run scheme. I think they're going to try to protect Fernando as much as they can. Now, Fernando's probably advanced enough as a football mind to be like, nah, give me more responsibility, especially because, like I said, since the Raiders have been on the clock since the season ended, they've technically been the only team allowed to talk to anybody without bringing them in for a visit or whatever. So they definitely have been working with Fernando on the entire playbook since February, whenever that period started. I say all that to say, I think Fernando's going to be good. I do think they're going to try to protect him year 1, so I just wouldn't make him someone you rely on early on.
Yeah, he would be. So this is the rookie draft. So it would be the 3rd overall pick of the rookie draft. I had with the 2 QB league, when they're healthy, I go Joe Burrow, Bo Nix pretty much all the time. I don't have, with Daniel Jones being in his scenario, I don't know what his outlook is like. So part of me is like, I do kind of want a 3rd QB just with Bo getting hurt. Joe Burrow's always hurt with that O-line. Too bad Dexter Lawrence can't play tackle too, O-tackle. And then, yeah, Daniel Jones, I don't know. So part of me is like, man, I kind of want a quarterback. None of the free agents in this league are like the free agent QBs are like Sam Howell, they just backups, you could get.
So if you want to take him and stash him, it's not a bad call.
Yeah, it depends. I think it depends on where the receivers go, right? Like, if Carnell Tate is, granted, the kid at 2 is going to, like, if Carnell Tate's a Chief, he's taking that. If Carnell Tate, I think he'll probably he likes Ohio State receivers, obviously. It's a good thing to bank on.
Who doesn't?
So I think he'll probably go him. Yeah. So, like, Jordan Tyson's a Chief. I'm intrigued there. Or Kenyon Sadiq ends up in a good situation like the Chiefs. Now, that also would intrigue me. Would it be a little early? Yes. But as we all know in fantasy, that tight end positional value is just there. And I do think Kenyon Sadiq has that ability to like kind of be a transcending tight end, one of the top 3 tight ends in the league, for a decade. If you got that in fantasy, that sets you aside. I got options is what I'm saying, but they're making me nervous.
Kenyon Sadiq would actually be perfect for a Kyle Shanahan, Clint Kubiak scheme. Like, he's obviously, I don't want to at all compare him to Christian McCaffrey. They obviously play different positions and they're different, but Shanahan uses McCaffrey as a chess piece. He's out of the backfield. They put him in the slot. They tell him to go deep. They use him as an inline blocker sometimes, but he's just a chess piece. So, like, the whole point is, wherever this guy is, we're going to try to make sure he's on a linebacker. We're going to try to make sure he's on the wrong guy so he can beat him off release, beat him off the point of the line of scrimmage. And I think Kenny Sadiq, if he gets put into the right offensive system, they won't just play him at tight end. I think he becomes a chess piece.
Yeah, I completely agree. Kenyon Sadiq got carries at Oregon. It wouldn't even be ridiculous to say he would get a carry in the NFL.
That's what I'm saying. I think Oregon will sign, at least they tried to make him their chess piece. It didn't work as well with the way Will Stein wanted to use him. But I think in the NFL, you get him around some professional offensive coaches, he could be pretty nasty there. All right. This podcast is gone. We're on a roll here, Jace. An hour and a half last week, hour 20 this week. I think this is we're back in our off-season bullshit. I like this. All right. Well, make sure you are subscribed to us on TikTok, on YouTube at Flag for Discussion Spelled Out, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, wherever you get your podcasts at Flag for Discussion Spelled Out. Make sure you're following us on TikTok at Flag 4 Discussion and Twitter at F4 Discussion. We've talked a lot. My throat is dry. I'm ready for some more coffee. Jace, happy 1 year. Happy 27th. I'm sure we'll be talking. Everybody make sure you have a great time watching the NFL draft this week. Go Tigers, go Angels. Anything else?
No, but go Lions too. Let's have a good draft. We need this.
So, Chargers, Lakers. Hey, Lakers up? First round. Pistons first round. This is a great sports week. This is a phenomenal.
Yeah, this is a great time.
The NFL draft.
Scotty's in the hunt if you're a golf fan.
Started.
Yeah. NHL. Yeah, got it all.
All right, well, now that the event of the year for both of us, our birthdays, has passed, now we have a smooth sailing for the rest of the year. Nothing else going on, right?
Yeah, I don't have anything important.
All right. Thank you so much, everybody. From myself, Robin Merkazi, my lovely partner, Jace Hatfield, this has been Flag for Discussion.